It came suddenly upon the disciples, like the rush of a violent wind. The Spirit of God seized them. Its effects were stunning. New abilities became theirs, even the gift of speaking and understanding as never before. We read in Acts that Peter saw where the Spirit would lead. There were visions to be seen and dreams about to unfold. Beyond ordinary sight and familiar ways, there was possibility. Women and men could create new life, righting wrongs, and the power of God's goodness would be made plain. All who called on God could be made whole. The movement of God's Spirit is described dramatically. At times, that is indeed the case. But in other circumstances, the power of the Spirit is felt quietly and deliberately, still inspiring us to act in ways we never imagined, calling forth from us visions and dreams and giving us power even to forgive, as John's Gospel describes. The Spirit is alive. It blows through our midst and calls us to give our very best, especially in acts of heroic service. The Holy Spirit can strengthen us beyond our ordinary limits. Amazingly, we are able to do extraordinary things. Today we mark two notable occasions. First, from the beginning of Christian history, we mark the day of Pentecost, as we have heard from the book of Acts. Then, we also observe a key national holiday, Memorial Day, giving thanks for those men and women who have given their lives in the service of our country. These occasions overlap powerfully. To their amazement, Jesus' followers found power to act in the face of fear and uncertainty, in ways that also summon gratitude. Many Americans have sacrificed heroically to defend our nation, upholding ideals of freedom and justice. God's Spirit moves through us, calling us to unite in service of high ideals. When ordinary people are thrown into unforeseen challenges, only the Holy Spirit can see them through. There are countless examples, but I think of one man many years ago. His life was taking shape quietly after he graduated from law school until World War II began. He was drafted and went readily, eventually going to Europe soon after the D-Day invasion. Assigned the task of getting medical supplies to one sector of the front lines, he saw the horror of war each day. In front of him, people suffered and destruction unfolded. The impressions were indelible, but he never wavered. He would be one of the first American soldiers to enter the concentration camp at Dachau. There, the evil produced by hatred was on vivid display. A quiet, shy soldier resolved that he would always promote fairness, decency, and respect, ideals of which he spoke often. If nothing else, he would later say, war made plain what we must stand for as Christians and as Americans: one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Not for some, not for a select few. One nation with liberty and justice for all. The quiet soldier was fortunate that he survived the war and was able to resume his law practice. Always humble, he came home with a depth of conviction and a vivid sense that he had been led by the Holy Spirit. He would heal and he would forgive, an eventual visit to Germany bringing needed closure. The sacrifices of so many, especially those who never came home, were not forgotten. Thrown into danger, so many found God's guidance, and they also found lasting purpose. The horror of war must never be minimized. So many people were scarred, but many found the power to act heroically. We must treasure the lessons our veterans have brought home, even as their suffering is evident. They learned that they could not go it alone. They had to be united. They had to rely upon each other. None could endure without teamwork. Above all, they had to be clear about why they were there, what they stood for. It could not be abstract. They could not be divided among themselves. They could only go forward together. In all conflicts, our American heroes have learned ancient lessons, the very lessons that Jesus' followers learned long ago. The first disciples huddled in fear until the strong winds of the Holy Spirit brought them power to understand and to speak, power to serve, even power to forgive. In every generation, those lessons must be relearned, the same message being driven home. And that lesson is this: we can never make it alone. We must never succumb to internal bickering. With the guidance of the Holy Spirit, we can become more than we ever imagined. In defense of all that is worthwhile, we can become one nation under God. This is our highest ideal. Even the church must learn and relearn this lesson. While the rest of the world struggles, we as Christians must be united. We must face our own challenges, climb beyond our steepest obstacles, and unite in the midst of difference. The world's difficulties are formidable, ranging from international conflict, threats such as climate change and strains on physical resources. But the gravest threat to us is the extent of social and political division across national life, eroding our unity, fragmenting our purpose. As if in war, we must reclaim the examples of heroic service that have made us a nation. As if in ancient times, we must recall the early Christians joined in redemptive intention by the power of the Holy Spirit. We must hear and speak as one. We must serve and forgive, bringing healing to God's world. Only together can we face what must be overcome. Inevitably, such talk of purpose is personal. The quiet lawyer thrust into war long ago was my father. He came home determined to work for unity, for service, and for faith. He saw the church as the place that must model unity, where we must stand together for the good of all. I'll say it again, the good of all. As God's Spirit blows among us, may we choose unity over division. Our hope lies not in the vindication of partisan political opinions, but in the pursuit of common good. Rivalry and suspicion undermine us, so to honor our calling as Christians and as Americans, we must be one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Nothing else can suffice.